and welcome to the Virtual Cafe. I'm your host, Segilola Salami. Who have I got here today?
Felicia Denise.
Hi,
I'm
Felicia.
Hi.
Go on, you're going to say something?
Uh, my name is Felicia Reevers, actually, but my pen name is Felicia Denise. That's what I'm publishing under my first book I just published, In the Best Interest of the Child, women's fiction, psychological drama. You can find it on Amazon.
Oh, cool. So, what's your book about?
My book is about Olivia Chandler, who is a 30-something child advocate attorney who lived through a traumatized childhood when her father was killed in a car accident and she was put into foster care. And she went through child abuse, child neglect, child endangerment, and she has abandonment issues and trust issues because although her mother survived the accident, her mother sustained mental issues because she thinks she didn't love her enough to be there for her. And so
Yeah.
now Olivia has been appointed a new case by the court that hauntingly looks like hers. And in order
Ah,
for her to help her latest client, 11-year-old Rena, she's got to come to grips with what happened to her 30 years ago.
wow. Wow. See, now, actually, it's quite timely having you on the show. Actually, you know what? I forget my manners. What would you like to drink today?
Just coffee, 2 sugars.
Two sugars, no milk, no cream, nothing?
Nope, 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 nope.
That's fine. And what would you like to have with your coffee?
Ooh, a bear claw.
What?
A bear claw.
What is that?
It's a donut.
Hello.
I'm, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Alan. How are
Hello.
you? Can you hear
Okay.
us?
Yeah, you're having to make do with an iPhone. Um,
No, that's fine.
anyway, so the IT people, they've got to do some work on this. We've got these wretched firewall settings that. Anyway, so sorry about that.
No, that's fine. You caught us in at a very amusing moment. So Felicia, she was trying to place an order, with the virtual cafe, and she goes, "Beer, what did you call this again?"
A bear claw.
Yes, and I'm like, see, I've never heard that before. And you see, that's a fancy American term for donuts.
Anyway, nice to meet you all on such an hilarious note.
Well, nice to meet you too as well. So do you want to
Hi, Alan.
do you want to have your
Hi.
15 seconds of fame and tell us about you, Alan?
Okay, well, here I am in my office in London. It's raining, it's dark, so it's a real wintry day. So it's an actual pleasure to join you guys and have a talk. Obviously, it's a very interesting subject, albeit a very tragic one, but it's very important that we do talk about it because that's the only way that we can change things in the future.
Yes, yes. So what do you do?
Well, I'm a lawyer and I specialise in representing people who've been sexually abused primarily as children and as young people. So I represent people here in the UK, but also overseas. So next week I'm off to Australia to see some clients and do some work in
Ooh.
Australia. And then in December it's the States. Yeah, so I go wherever the work takes me.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, what would you like to drink? See, it's a virtual cafe. So be as imaginative as you can. I've heard loads of different things before, so I might just act a bit silly and think, what is that? But please do go ahead with it. Place whatever you would like to drink.
Well, I would like to drink a nice dark coffee, but I haven't got one.
Okay, dark coffee. So is that like coffee, no sugar, no milk?
Yeah,
Okay, any sugar?
exactly. No sugar.
Ah, okay. So you and Felicia are quite similar. She only wants two sugars in hers, but no milk, and you want no sugar, no milk. Okay, that's perfect. The little human, she's got her hands full at the moment. So she'll get around to it in a second. I hope you guys are not in a hurry for your orders.
Oh no.
No, okay. Alan, what would you like to have with your coffee?
Well, I'd like to have my coffee on a day like this, some milk chocolate.
Some milk chocolate. Ah, okay. Well, that's yours quite easy because the little human is turning 2 in about 2 weeks' time, and I'm like super excited. I swear to God, with the way I'm so excited, you would think it was my own birthday that's coming up very soon, right? So I've got loads of different chocolates because I am going to attempt something that I've never attempted before, right? And I'm thinking of making a piñata cake. But, but instead of a regular piñata, right, where they have sweeties and Mars and all those funky things in it, I'm going to use molten chocolate.
Wow.
So once you just cut the slice of cake, the chocolate just drizzles out. Well, the question now is, can I pull it off or not? Because I'm thinking,
Interesting.
I know, because I'm thinking, how do I get it so that the cake does not become soggy?
Exactly.
But we'll
Huh.
watch this page. So I've got loads of chocolate and I've got milk chocolate as well. So you will get some milk chocolate today.
Well,
I
you're
want some of the cake.
way above
Sorry?
I said your cooking and recipes way above my pay grade, so I'll let you get on with that.
No, it's just because I get food channel on Facebook group, so I get to see different things. But the inspiration for this piñata cake, right? So I don't normally watch TV, and one day, because I have the apps on my TV to watch YouTube stuff. So one day when I turned it on, I saw a Great British Bake Off, and I thought, you know what? I haven't watched this in ages. And so I thought I was just going to watch it. And the winner, don't even ask me her name, she did a piñata cake, but she didn't use molten chocolate, she used cream.
Hmm.
So I thought, that's inspiring.
And the cake wasn't soggy.
It wasn't at all, and she was the winner.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes, very interesting. But yeah, so we'll get the little human once she finishes what she's doing, to get your orders together. Right, and
Okay,
I'm actually, yeah, so I'm actually quite pleased I have both of you on the show today because winter's here in the UK, and everybody has seasonal effect. Well, not everybody, but they say that the holiday season is time that loads of people get depressed and people have they get lonely, moody. There's an increase in seasonal affective disorder and loads of different things. And funny enough, right? I've had a person who I know personally, said to me, in the course of having a discussion that they've been abused as children. And sometimes when something has happened, the first time, that someone ever told me this, I was in my 20s. And I didn't really think much because I'm like, 20s, I think when you're in your 20s, you're quite stupid. Well, I thought I was quite stupid because the person told me, I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear about it, but I just didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do because the deed has happened. But like, okay, I can sympathize with you, but I didn't even know what to think. And then, somebody else then said something else to me again, in that regards. And I'm like, and this was really, really horrible thing to have ever crossed my mind, right? And this is me, and this is me. And I was like, why in my mind, and God knows I did not say this out loud, in my mind I was like, why are you telling me this? Because I felt helpless. Like, how do I know what to do? Like, I'm in my 20s, I've just left university, right? I'm clueless, I'm trying to find my feet in life, right? And I'm like, so in my head I'm like, why are you telling me this? Obviously I didn't do that, I didn't say that out loud, it was just in my head. And then another person said, it's like, girl that I know, she was like, oh yeah, she was raped. And then someone goes, oh yes, that her dad's, and it was just, and the last time that I had it, I was like, you know what? Enough now. This is enough. I need to do something. I don't know what I can do, but I'm sure there are loads of people who are in exactly the same position as me, who people, that trust them have confided in them, but then they're quite at a loss of what to do.
Yes. And
You know,
it
so
takes a lot to make that admission.
yes. And then again, sometimes when you hear it, there's that shock, and then there's that time where you need to process everything that you've heard. Because again, a lot of times I think, and I am not an expert, that you might be thinking, yes, these things happen, but you don't really know. You never think it's going to happen to someone or you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. So I just thought, you know what, I've got the show. I've got all these amazing people who come on the show, and I'm quite fortunate that the both of you chose to come on the show today. So maybe you can give some light, into the subject matter. So, what exactly is child abuse, and how can someone, a parent, an adult, a teacher, a carer, how can they identify a child who's being abused? Because something that I've read, or something that somebody told me, somehow I heard about it, is that it's only when a child is much older, say in their 20s, that they realize that what's happened to them is actually child abuse, but then they don't realize at the time.
That's not right. So there's lots of questions there that you've asked. Children know what is wrong and what is unpleasant and what is painful and all the rest of it. Don't say that glibly, but I'm just putting it in very simple terms.
Of course.
The problem is that adults don't listen to children.
Right.
Don't notice.
And you're not always going to recognize it, because until the child realizes what's going on, there is a lot of shame involved. And some of the best actors on the planet are children. And they may hide it out of shame. They may hide it out of
Sorry?
They may hide it out of, they're trying to protect the adult who's doing the abuse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you may not recognize it, and they may not recognize. They may, pull it inside and internalize it and block it for years and years. So you can't just look at a child and say, "Oh my God, that child's abused." It's never going to be that easy.
No, but you'd agree with me that adults often miss the signs of a child being abused because
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, they do.
Yeah.
We're so quick to wave things off when children are involved, because children go through stages and phases, and we're just so quickly to think, oh, they're just going through something right now, and not really pay attention.
True.
I see lots of cases where the person as an adult was upset as a child as a result of what was happening to them, trouble at school. No one was really saying to me, the child, why are you behaving like this? What's wrong? This isn't like you. So there were possibly opportunities in that child's life for an adult to have sat down with that child. But those opportunities are missed, and that is why it's so important that we listen to victim survivors to learn about that, because we're all capable of putting on blinkers and turning a deaf ear, so to speak, and to miss what children are trying to tell us, even if they are if they are suppressing what's happening in their lives.
Okay, so I know that you said that adults can miss the signs, but then typically what sort of, like, an average person, what sort of signs can they look out for, or what would be a giveaway sign?
The kids withdraw. Kids are usually rambunctious and active and talkative, and all of a sudden, if that child becomes withdrawn and quiet and keeping to themselves, that's a sure sign right there.
Yeah, that's right. Or, as I said in the example I just gave, a child that is well behaved at school and at home starts to behave out of character. They start to
Exactly.
they start to skip school and lessons and play up in the lessons and play up at home, and it might get aggressive.
You know,
Interesting.
with my experience with working in childcare, we had children as young as 3 and 4 who were being sexually suggestive because it was being done to them. They were reenacting what was being done to them in daycare.
Yeah. So what would the nursery staff or the daycare staff do in such a situation?
Now, let me tell you, this was a couple of decades ago, before, people were really trying to help with child abuse. And
Hmm.
this particular little girl was 4 years old. She had Down syndrome, and she was with her aunt and uncle. And
Hmm.
I reported what I had seen. Another employee reported what they had saw. The director took it to the board, and nothing was done.
Oh dear.
They blamed her Down syndrome.
Really?
Yes. And this is 20, like I
Ah,
said, this is 20 years ago, but they blamed her Down syndrome.
interesting.
And
What do
sadly,
you what
get lots of cases like that. That's a frightening example, of course. Um, and of course, the abuse of young people with disabilities,
Yes.
communication problems, and so on is still a real issue in 2016. These are very vulnerable young people. And
Yes.
it would be naive to think that, in spite of education and changes over the last decade or so, that the risk has minimized. Far from it. We are still seeing shocking examples of young people with disabilities, so on, and difficulties, who are particularly vulnerable, and that vulnerability being exploited.
hmm.
Exactly.
An example of something that someone said to me once. She said that once she was at home and she was around, I don't know, maybe 11 to 13, something like that. I don't know, 11, 12, 12, 13, something like that. She was sitting at home. Everybody else, like when you're in a house, everybody else is doing their own thing, but then she was sitting down in the living room. And then someone came visiting. And like when you see a little chubby kid, you then go, oh, hello. And you sort of pull on the child's, cheeks and go, it's like, oh, you're so chubby and hello, and you try to tickle the child. And the person, this grown adult male, his hand downwards to her boobs, right? And she's trying to get away, right? But then he just kept, and then it was the whole jovial, look at you, you're so chubby. It's like, oh, you're eating so much. And that was going on. And so when I was having this conversation with this person, she was like, she didn't even know how to tell anybody because it was a very shameful thing. She was like, how does she even tell anyone that this is what happened? She didn't even know what to do. What do you guys think? Like, because it's just so like they're just these predators. They're just it's just it's like when you're having a migraine just thinking about it. It's like I don't even know what to say because there's just so many different ways. Because like I'm Nigerian, right? I'm Nigerian Brit, but in Nigeria, there's this saying, right? It's usually in Yoruba, but I'm going to try and say it in English, right? That the worm that eats a leaf is on the leaf, which basically translates that the people who cause us the most harm are the people who are close to us, right? And I've read,
Exactly.
that most of the time the people who do abuse are people that are known to the family, in a very close way. So, if someone, who's living with you or who's close to your family, then, how can you then sort of, I think that sometimes that's why some children are reluctant to say anything, because how can they, they think they will be looked at as lying because this is someone who is close to the family. Or sometimes, the parents might think that they're being naughty because they don't want to go to someone who is supposed to be quote unquote their carer.
Exactly. It's part of society. It's part of the culture, and that's how these predators get away with it. you know, and parents will say, they're just fond of you, you know, or they just really
Yeah.
like you, or why are you thinking like that? You know, and parents aren't paying attention when children are trying to tell them.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
but it's easier to deny and, you know, think, well, it was only that one time. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
I know women, you know, they're in their 30s and 40s now. It's happened to them repeatedly because
Mm.
predators can spot the easy marks.
Yeah.
They
Mm.
can spot the timid type, the meek type. They can spot them, and that's who they zone in on.
Hmm. So, okay, right now, okay. So, to help parents or guardians or carers or anyone listening to, to the show, so identify, because I think today, I thought it would be quite good to help us know what child abuse is, and how to recognize it. And then I'm hoping next week, we can look at how to get justice. So you guys have said some really, important thing is that, one of the signs and symptoms is that the children are acting out of character, um, be it at school, be it at home, and they're doing, things that they would not normally do. But then what else can a parent do? Or okay, what can a parent do to help a child to speak up? And how can a parent also identify or suspect, or what would be another trigger point for them to make the parent want to actually sit up and know what to do?
Parents need to talk to their children. They shouldn't wait until something happens. When your child is 2 years old, talk to her now.
Yeah.
Let her, good touch, bad touch,
Yeah.
and no one is allowed to touch you. And if someone does a bad touch, you tell me. Never be ashamed, never be embarrassed, never be afraid. Parents need to talk to their children.
Yeah. Okay. Alan, so from your professional, experience, what have been the signs that, parents have noticed that you've seen that, that has helped, a parent identify that something's going on?
Well, it's the message that comes through loud and clear is there have been opportunities for the child to have been listened to. And so
Mm.
what survivors talk about is not being, that is a big message that comes through. And of course, a lot of children who are abused are already in a vulnerable situation anyway. And so they don't necessarily claim opportunity to confide in an adult. And it's not just about parents, it's about all adults,
Mm.
teachers and um, people in the voluntary services, is everybody who has contact with children, who should be thinking about this and learning about the experiences of victims and survivors. We can't just assume that it's an issue of parents. It isn't. It goes far beyond that. It's incumbent, in my opinion, on everybody in society.
Yeah.
True. And all too often, the parent is the abuser.
That was the part I was going to go to next. That what about when the parent is the abuser? What can another adult do? That was what I was going to ask next.
And that might be the hardest situation because, like I said, an abused child will try to protect that parent.
Yeah.
Children who and adults who've been abused often have a sense of misplaced guilt. They also, of course, very often have a very strong attachment or bond to the abuser, because the abuser may be a member of their family or very close to them. It may be a relative, it may be a parent, or it may be somebody else, and those bonds can be extremely powerful, and prevent the child from being able to speak out with ease.
Hmm.
Very powerful dynamics at play when we have child abuse, sadly.
I know, because I do have a friend of mine. She's a bit older than I am. I think she's maybe 10 years older than I am. So she's in her late 40s, and I think that she possibly was emotionally abused by her mom, because now that she's in her 40s, I've never heard her say a good word about her mom. Like literally, if you ever mention her mom, it was literally
Guys,
she just goes off.
It's gone 5 o'clock, I'm afraid, and I know it's my fault that we've been very late starting this, but I've got to move on to my next port of call, as it were. So I'm going to have to, I'm afraid, leave you to carry on discussing these very important issues without me next week.
No, that's fine. We'll see you next week. But then, should someone need to speak to you in the meantime, what can they do? Well, can they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me on my mobile telephone number, which is 07527329970. That's 07527329970, or send me an email. The email address is alan, Collins, COLLINS, at Hugh James, which is HUGHJAMES.com. So alan.collins at hughjames.com.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll speak to you again next week.
Will do.
Nice meeting you, Alan.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye now. And he's out. Almost. Is he? Okay, I think he's almost gone. But yes, anywho, do continue, Felicia.
Yes.
Hello? So
we
you
have
said
to build. We have to build relationships with children, so that they feel empowered to speak up for themselves.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if it's a parent, they're going to try to protect that child, or the parent will portray this child as a liar, a thief, sexually promiscuous.
Yeah.
And so that, everyone will say anything this child says isn't true. Yeah. And this child will hold all of these things in. And they get to their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're still dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's quite interesting, what you said, because there's another group that I'm part of, right? And I seem to be a part of loads of different groups, right? So there's a group that I'm a part of, on Facebook that's literally focused, that's just a women's only group. And because child abuse is quite an important theme. What a lot of the women in the group, they always sort of try to remind each other to do is to tell their children, and they try not to discriminate between boys and girls, because again, as we know, it happens to both sexes. And they say that you should tell your children, like you said already, that do not let anybody touch you here, and there, right? So this lady, she then wanted to share with us something that had happened. And so she said that her daughter followed her to work. So she lives abroad, and she needed to go into work on a Saturday, and she was supposed to be taking her kids to the park or something. So she thought she would stop by at work, with her kids, sort out what she needed to do, and then go, right? Take them out for the day. So while she was in the office and the kids were sort of roaming around all over, right? Her daughter then comes to her and says, "Mama, you know what you said, that I should not be afraid to tell you at any time?" And the mom goes, "Yes. Well," and then she points to a guy who was far away, "just touched me on my bum bum."
Oh.
Yes. And then the mom looks at him, and then he goes, "Oh," he was like, "Oh no, I was just playing with her." And then the mom says to him, "Don't do that anymore, okay? She's not here for that." And I think, what everybody said to her, congratulations, was, some people were like, you should have just given him a dirty slap on his face, to sort of reset his factory settings, because, the child was not there for him. Why would he, even go to touch the child anyway? But then the mom did address the issue, and everyone was like, well, congratulations, it was good on you for doing that, because you've addressed the issue in the presence of your child to make her know that, if anything did happen, you will defend her, you will stand up for her, and you will not even go and think, "Oh, are you sure? Did it really happen? Are you telling me a lie?" She just basically just dealt with it there, because it needed to be done.
Good. Yes, exactly. And the child saw that she could speak up and something would be done.
Yes. And she
and
was,
that's very important.
Yeah, and but I think what everybody in the group was saying was that you need to start from an early age, tell them what is allowed, what isn't allowed. But again, I think sometimes we focus a lot on the abuse is bad, and most of the ones that we seem that I've come across a lot of is the sexual abuse. But then if you speak to people, they will tell you that there are loads of different types of abuse. There is the apart from the
Yes.
sexual one, there is the emotional abuse, and then there is the physical abuse. I mean, the physical abuse is
Yes.
more obvious to see, but then what a
Yes.
lot of people would not see is the emotional one, and the amount of damage that it can do.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think that that would be more difficult to spot, though, because if a child was being abused even from before the child went into daycare or nursery, like we say in the UK, then whatever the child's behavior, it would be the norm to the people who don't know the child. So they might not then be able to gauge that it's actually because of something. But then I'm not an expert. So I mean, what do you think about the emotional side of things?
I'm not an expert either, but from situations that I've been in and people that I've known, there is a personality flaw. There's a low self-esteem. Again,
Yeah,
they're withdrawn. I mean, because if someone's emotionally abusing you, they're constantly telling you that you're worthless, you have no value.
yeah,
They're not investing anything in you. And I'm not saying that every person with low self-esteem has been emotionally abused,
yeah,
but when you see it in a child or a teenager,
yeah.
for me, it's a sign.
Mm,
When
mm.
children think they have no value, there's a reason. Why? What happened to this child to think that they don't matter to anyone?
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So, tell me about your book. Let's see how that panned out. What was the title again?
In the best interest of the child.
Okay. So, and your character, the main character, the advocate, was Olivia. Did I remember correctly?
Yep, Olivia Chandler.
Oh, well, you know what? Baby brain isn't so bad. I thought I got it wrong.
You're doing great.
So tell me, what was her story? From before we go into her, I think maybe if you do come again, we might go into the rest of the characters. But what was her initial story? How was she emotionally abused? Who identified it? How is it? How was it identified for her?
Olivia had a perfect life. She was a 10-year-old. She had a perfect life. She had a father whom she adored, who talked to her, who explored with her, who taught her things. And he
Yeah.
was an attorney, and she was a very well-adjusted child.
Mm,
And there was a car accident. Her father was killed,
mm,
and her mother had what's called complicated grief disorder, and
mm,
she withdrew, and she had to be committed because of that. And while all of this is going on, Olivia, who is also injured in the accident, is put into foster care because there's no living family. And her first situation with being abused was in foster care because the first foster family had three young daughters her age, and they would pinch her and kick her and call her names, and the parents did nothing about it. They
very
thought she should be,
Cinderella-like.
yes, they thought she should be grateful that they took her in. So
Mm,
so then they think Olivia's mom is getting better and Olivia gets to go home, but her mom doesn't get better. She gets worse. And then Olivia becomes, a permanent resident in foster care. And
mm,
she gets some of the worst foster homes. She gets one good foster home,
mm.
out of 9 years. But she gets some of the worst foster care homes where people are in it for that monthly
Yeah.
compensation. That's the only reason
Yes.
they're doing it. And
Yeah.
she's not, but she had a good foundation from her
Mm,
father. She was only 10 years old, but she
yeah.
knew right from wrong. She knew when people were mistreating her, but she also had a horrible social worker who
Mm,
had her own history,
yeah.
who paid Olivia no attention.
Mm,
But Olivia's
interesting.
saving grace was that her mother did self-commit, so she didn't lose any of her rights or assets, so that when
Mm,
Olivia became of age, there was money for her.
Right.
And she went to college and became a child advocate attorney.
Interesting. So basically, was it just because she became an adult and that was how she just came out of the system?
Yes, she aged out.
Right, and then that was basically how the abuse stopped.
Exactly. But
Wow.
she never ever got counseling. No one ever let her grieve for her father. No one ever, updated her on her mother's situation. She was just shuttled around from foster care home to foster care home until she aged out. Well, after the attempted rape, she went to a foster care facility, and that's where she aged out of the system.
Wow.
So
That's
no,
you know.
no, during her childhood, it was never addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's quite interesting because just sort of going by what you said, it reminded me of something. Now, again, like I've got baby brain and loads of things are just sort of flitting around in my memory. So I can't remember if it was a book. I can't remember if what I'm about to say is from a book that I read or a movie that I watched or someone told me. But I will just tell you the story anyway. But I cannot give credit to whoever it is because I honestly can't remember. Baby brain. So we'll just bear with me. So
Okay, go right ahead.
we will assume that it was a film that I watched. Let's just assume it was a film that I watched, right?
Okay.
And this girl, she's been tossed around from foster home to foster home. And, she then got to the very worst. That was basically the last foster home. And apparently, because again, I'm not from America, so I don't really know how the foster care system really works over there. But apparently, that would be the last foster care home that she would go in. And if they returned her, she would then be sent to, I don't know, like a facility or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, so basically, so the people who were this absolute horrible people, or I think the man, whoever, right? The owners of the family where they had put her into, they basically said that she would have to deal with whatever crap they dished at her because they were her last chance.
Yes. Yes.
And if she didn't, I mean, I don't know why people would be scared of the facility. So I mean, if the family were the worst, then I can only imagine that the foster facility is even worse. It's like a gazillion times worse than that, right?
Yes.
Um, so so basically they then brought in men who would pay for sex to sleep with her.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, if you tell anyone, they're going to take you away. And when they take you away, you're going to end up in a facility.
Mm-hmm.
And she had no choice to deal with that. So the foster carers were getting money off the state, but then also getting money from these I would just call them demons, right?
Yes.
That they were paying money to go and sleep, with this young girl who was less than 18 years old, every single day, several times a day, and it was just something that just sort of when you were talking about foster care, it just sort of triggered that memory of what I'd heard about, and I think like you and Alan had said, these people, they know the most vulnerable, that they know the weakest ones, and they take
Yes.
advantage of it. But I guess that's why the people who are the adults who are surrounding these children need to be a bit more vigilant. And I guess like that's why in your book Olivia was failed because she had really dodgy social worker.
Yes. The foster care system serves a good purpose. It exists for a good reason. Just in
Yeah.
my opinion, it is poorly managed because
Yeah.
in these times of budget cuts and downsizing, it's always one of the first agencies in any state to lose money. And so
Hmm.
you have fewer social workers who can get out to see these kids in the homes that they live in. You
Yeah.
have fewer social workers with less money to get these kids the services they need. They need psychological counseling. They have PTSD. They
Yeah.
need some sort of rehabilitation and recovery. But when the money's not there, the kids are failed.
Yes. Yes, it's a really sad state of things. I mean, the UK, we're not immune to budget cuts and stuff. And I only wonder what's going to happen now that we're supposed to be leaving the EU. I mean, with the whole Brexit
Yes.
slogan going on. And it's quite a worrying time. But hopefully we'll be able to bring some smiles and have fun and forget our worries, in a month's time with the holidays coming up. But I'm hoping that hopefully anyone who's in our virtual cafe with us having some coffee, two sugar, no milk, with what did you call it, bear claw?
Bear claws. Yes, you must have a bear claw.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll be able to get something, from everything that you and Alan have said. So I guess, the main takeaway is a child is acting out of character. If a child is, misbehaving, sometimes, it just takes that person, one person to just say, hey, how are you doing? I mean, even as adults, we're dealing with lots of stress. And, sometimes, when I've got a friend, who asks me, oh, how are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But the friend doesn't just take that, auto response. He then goes, no, I know you're fine, but seriously, how are you doing? One person just almost emphasizes each word, and it makes you just
Yes.
stop for a second
Yes.
to
Yes.
just think. And I think, if as adults we appreciate someone just taking that time to say, really, how are you doing? Right? Then you can imagine the impact that it would have on a child's life, if they feel like you actually genuinely care and are interested in knowing how they're doing.
Exactly. And it's not just their behavior. You have to watch the behavior of the adults around them. If they're
Yeah,
if they're always trying to be around them, if it's a parent and they don't let them
yeah,
socialize with other children or let them go to
yeah,
sleepovers, or all they do is go to school and go home, you have to watch the
yeah,
adults also.
yeah. Yeah, but you see the thing you said about sleepovers, though. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of sleepovers now, because again, you can never really tell in that other family's life.
Exactly. I am from a very large family. There were 6 girls in my family.
Yeah,
And I'm from very strict parents, and my father did not believe in sleepovers.
yeah,
And I was 16 years old before I went to my first sleepover with my best friend, but my family knew her family. But just with
yeah,
girls having, birthday parties and summer parties and sleepovers, we were not allowed to go because, just like you said, my father, I don't know what's going on in their house. I'm not sending my girls into that situation.
yeah. Yes, and because that's the thing though, because it's the people that because something that my mom says, right? She was like, when you're going to, my mom, very wise woman, God bless her soul, she's no more, right? She said to me, right, if you were ever going to think about getting married, right, because and she says it is not just about the man, right?
No.
You need to look at his family
Yes.
as a whole,
Yes.
because if you don't look at his family as a whole, right, and they're people who have a strong influence in his life,
Yes.
and they don't particularly like you, they would make your life miserable,
Very wise. Very
right?
wise words. Yes.
Yes. So again, I think you can then relate that to, say, another child, another family. So maybe you might know one person in that family. So maybe there's a family of, I don't know, maybe 3 boys and 1 girl, or 1 boy, 1 girl. You might know one child. You might know one parent. You might know them, because again, people are good, illusionists. Good people are good at acting. So you might know them in a very superficial way, but you don't really know what goes on behind closed doors. So sometimes,
No.
that you might think that you know someone, but then you don't really know that person.
No.
And see, that's why as me personally, I'm not a big fan. I never had a sleepover until I think I went to university. My parents did not even believe in it, so it was never even something that was subject to conversation to say, oh yes, let's go, go have sleepover at someone else's house. That conversation never. It was just one of those things
Nope.
not to even bother asking.
Nope. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, so I guess it's the same thing though, because some people, and you might say that if a child is being abused, that's possibly why the parent don't want to allow the child to go and socialize with other people. But then there's
Exactly.
also the flip side where, because the parent doesn't know what is going on in that other family's, household. For instance, I've heard of situations where, a child, maybe a mom, sends her child to go and stay with her sister because she's having some problems and she needed a break, and says, go and stay with my sister, right? But then one of the male nephews then abuses her own
Yes.
child.
Yes. Yes.
So this is supposed to be family.
Yes. And that happens all too often. I worked with a woman for 12 years and I did not know. And I consider myself a very aware person, but I
Yeah.
worked with her for 12 years and did not know that her husband was physically abusing her regularly.
Wow.
And it was the last time that he abused her was when I found out, was when she was hospitalized.
Wow. Wow.
And we had worked side by side, gone out to lunch, done everything, and I had no idea. She never spoke badly of him. She was always, doing things for him. He was always pleasant when he came around. No one knew.
Yeah.
No one knew. So imagine if an adult can do that, how a child's going to internalize it.
Yes. Yeah.
And like I said, some of the best actors in the world are children. They see you see what they want you to see.
Yes. I know it's a really sad state of things. But I guess today's takeaway that I'm just going to, like someone told me once that I'd never realized, like, is like, what's it called, the break the fourth wall. Sort of
Yes.
say that, if you ever see a child, even if you do not suspect anything, is to literally just say to that child, hello, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And says, look, if you're ever in problem, if you're ever in trouble, if you need anything, just ask me. Feel free to come and confide in me.
And it may take you doing that several times because you've got to build up trust.
Yes.
That child has no reason to trust anyone.
Yeah.
So you've got to build up a relationship of just asking, how are you doing?
Yes.
If you want to talk, let me know. And like I said, it may take several times.
Yes. 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 But okay, well, my little human is saying all done. All done is her keyword to say, yes, okay, whoever I'm talking to needs to go away.
Yeah, it's over now.
So she's basically giving me the cue that, yes, you need to go away now.
I gotta listen to the boss.
Yeah, she's the boss now. And what's the time? It's going on 5:30, so she needs to have another snack before dinner time.
Okay.
Because again, it's been a miserable, cold and wet day. Very wet in London today. It is.
Well, it's still morning here in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, lucky you guys. Is that one of the places that you guys get lots of sunshine?
Yes, I'm sitting on the patio talking to you.
Oh gosh, I hate you. Bye, you can go away now. Sunshine, what's that? I don't think I've seen the sun in a while. We know the sun before. No, it's been cloudy the last few days.
It actually rained last night, but like I said, it was last night. I think I even put a picture of a double rainbow on Instagram.
Ooh.
But it rains, and then an hour later, the ground is dry, and we're back to sunshine.
Oh, don't worry. I'm offering you no sympathy whatsoever. You get no sympathy whatsoever from me.
Okay.
Well, before we say all done, right? Remind us again
Yes.
about your book. So if anyone's listening and they want to go and find out about this amazing Olivia, what's her last name again?
Chandler.
Olivia Chandler. What's the title of the book again?
It is In the Best Interest of the Child. And you can find out more about it on my website, FeliciaDenise.com.
Okay, so is that DENISE?
Yes.
Okay.com. Perfect. Well, it's been absolutely amazing. We've had lots of fun, and it's been great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and hopefully you'll stop by again in our cafe, and maybe you will bring some other funky American snack that you want in there we don't know anything about.
I'll bring you apple fritters next time.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. At least we know what that is. Okay, then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone, this is me trying to sound all really posh. It's been an absolute amazing time having all of you here, and hopefully we'll have Alan again back next week. And he came late. He had because he's a lawyer, and these people are very, very busy. And then he had to go for his next appointment, but hopefully I can have him back again next week. Felicia, can we expect to have you back on the show sometime in the next?
Sure. Sure.
Would be absolutely amazing as well. Everything's absolutely amazing to me. Well, everyone, I will see you again next week, and hopefully next week, let's see. So we've talked about the signs and how to identify, a child who's been abused and what you can do to help. And then hopefully next time, but then again, we never can tell or plan how the show goes, but hopefully next time we'll talk about, how to get justice, for a child who's been abused, because sometimes you need to just feel like what's the word? Is it restitution, or you've gotten justice for what's happened to you to allow you to move forward.
Or at least an acknowledgement. At least acknowledgement.
Yes. So hopefully we'll cover that next week. But until then, ciao. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.